Hey, how are you? So here we are on another Thursday afternoon, and it's sunny, kind of cloudy here. So if I end up being a bit shiny, sorry, that means the sun came out, and that's the one thing about taping in the living room. I have a little more, well, no, actually, the sun comes in through the window there too. I'm just glancing through my Star Trek magazine. This was going to be my read for June on Book Track. So be sure to check out Revenant Reads. That's Vin. He started this particular event. You can also go to Read by Fred, and he talks about Book Track as well. And I thought of reading this, and I'm actually going to. It's definitely trivia, as it says, original series trivia book. So this is the Star Trek, of course. We've got Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock. We have Bones. We have Lieutenant Uhura. And wow, somebody I don't know. So hopefully I'll figure that out. Oh, maybe that's Christopher Pike. Yes, it is. And I just read the actor's name, but that was going to be the original captain. But that pilot didn't work out. And lucky for William Shatner, that time when they presented Star Trek, it did get picked up. And yeah, now I really want to get into this, but I may actually put it off because as I was watching Fred's video last night and he was talking about Book Track, and no, I don't have the uniform, but I definitely love it. He had mentioned waiting to hear what I think about Probe. And this is, of course, one of the books that I found during my thrift store travels. And as I was reading inside, this is going to be my June read for Star Trek. I've seen all the movies, original Star Trek and Next Generation, and I've actually considered, since it is Book Trek after all, watching all the movies again. And in this particular book, if you have seen Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home, this book involves that, and the probe from that movie, of course, is in here. It connects with the Romulan Empire, and the probe is back again. But it also, as I was reading the back just before, a little before the live started today, it does say, where did I find it? Final confrontation. I do know it mentioned about Star Trek 4 being a reference for this. So maybe it was in the front part that I read it. An epic-length novel that at last picks up the story of the USS Enterprise and her crew where Star Trek 4 left off. A novel that reveals the secrets behind the mysterious probe that almost destroyed Earth. It's been a while since I've seen it, and I'm pretty sure that's the one with the whales, because I know the third one was Finding Spock. The second one was Where We Lost Spock, and the first one had to do with V'ger. So I definitely want to read this now. Like I say, I know I had just seen that this had to do with number 4 and a follow-up. So I may actually Oh, maybe I'll read the book and then watch the movies, because now I'm really curious to find out about the probe. So that is a bit about Book Track and what I have coming up. And the other part, okay, oh, here they are. Because astronomy books also count, because I've had a heck of a time finding Star Trek books, which truly makes me sad, because I unhauled my original Star Trek books from way back when I was watching it in the late 1960s, early 1970s. And yes, I am as old as Star Trek, actually. I just found out peeking through my magazine, it was 1964 when they were casting for Star Trek. And yes, it was January 1964 when I made my appearance into the here and now. So it's kind of cool. I'm apparently as old as Star Trek. I'm pretty sure Tim Hortons is also as old as I am. It's kind of funny when we'll see who lasts longer. Well, actually, we know with the original Star Trek. But as far as astronomy books, what I may end up reading, two have been waiting for a while, and I do have some on my shelves that, thank goodness, books are patient. So the one is A Brief Guide of the Universe from Ancient Babylon to the Big Bang. This is by J.P. McAvoy. And it will be an interesting read because this was published in 2010. And if you follow anything with astronomy, you know there are always changes and things coming up and new discoveries. So I'm very fascinated to read this, which is now 14 years old, compared to what some of the things are they understand now. Another book that has been waiting, I haven't read it yet. This is Outer Space in Your Pocket, Essential Facts About Our Solar System and Beyond. And this is by Mike Flynn. So again, I'm very curious. The contents are the solar system, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. That'll tie in nicely with my UFO ET reading. Nebula, supernovas, pulsars, and black holes. Matter and antimatter. Magellanic clouds and the Andromeda Galaxy, which I do remember is, or at least was, the closest galaxy when I was remembering all the different number of moons and information about the planets. But that was a number of decades ago, and things have changed so much since then. Early Soviet space program, space stations, which certainly wouldn't have been in books when I was originally getting excited about astronomy, and satellites and probes. So there you go. I'm pretty sure the probes in this book will be different than the information in that book. But I'm looking forward to that. So I may definitely read that. And Book Track is June, July, and August. So I have plenty of time. I may reread Neil deGrasse Tyson's Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. It was an enjoyable read the first time through. And it will definitely, yep, you can tell, I've got it dog-eared. So there were definitely some points in there that I'll want to go through again. It talks about exoplanets, dark matter. Definitely worth a revisit. And I may or may not get to The Mars Mystery. This is by Graham Hancock. The Secret Connection Linking Earth's Ancient Civilization and the Red Planet. There's certainly many theories out there between portals to get from here to there and conspiracy things about who's been to Mars and what have you. There's, of course, the big hoo-ha about the face on Mars and what is it actually. It certainly, and Hancock has it here, it certainly looks like a face, but of course, it's hard to say because you're looking at a distance, there's shadows, you don't really know what it is. And then, of course, there is the speculation about whether there is whether there are pyramids there like we have here. And really, until someone goes there, they're not going to know. I mean, or unless one of the probes or satellites gets close to it. But I may hold off on reading this one until, and it's actually going to come through on my TBR list. So I'll talk about that and the connection in a little bit. So I kind of jumped ahead and did my book event first in terms of Book Trek. But yeah, definitely excited to get back into this. And so thank you, Fred, for your video and reminding me that the astronomy books count as well. I'm going to continue looking for Star Trek books, but even looking on Amazon, it wasn't that easy to find. And I know when I spoke to the clerk at the one thrift store I go to, they said they go off the shelves pretty fast. When I was there last week, so a week ago on Friday, they did have some Star Wars books there, and it's been a while since I've read Star Wars as well. So I'm both Star Trek, Star Wars. Yes, I can do the hand thing. Let's see, can I do them both? Oh, look, I can do both uber quick. So yay. And I just actually read a fascinating fact about how Leonard Nimoy came up with that. And he was actually the one who originally came up with the Vulcan greeting. And it actually has special significance for him on a spiritual level. So it's kind of cool that he was able to incorporate that into the series, and now so many other people are still doing it. So I think that's wonderful. That has to do with Book Trek. Today, I did Timothy promise to go through cube number 2 of my to be read books at the beginning. So I'm going to start with that. And if you see me stretching over a little bit, it's just me putting them back in because I piled them all up beside me here. And hopefully my humidifier, my air purifier, isn't causing too much noise. But excuse me, there's lots of stuff flying in the air. Zena's allergies and mine are going crazy. So I need to leave that on. And if you hear a little bit of coughing in the background, that's our little asthmatic Zena. So poor little Muffin, she has to have her inhaler right now a few times a day. Okay, the books that I want to start reading. We have Dragonology, the complete book of dragons. I've had this book for a number of years. It's definitely one of my fun books. I had it in my resource room when I worked in schools. Always have to get things figured out, oops, in a direction here. So it's fun. They've got graphics, different information, maps. It's just a fun book. And they've got the anatomy and different information. So that'll be a fun read. We even have we even have dragon script here. It'll be interesting to see because I have another dragon book by DJ Conway. She also has a dragon alphabet. So I'm curious to see whether those two are going to match or not. The next book that I have, and it's also a fun one, Vampire, the Terrifying Lost Journal of Dr. Cornelius Van Helsing. So if you've read Dracula, you know the Van Helsing name. Again, they have amazing maps and graphics, cool things that slip out, and little notes. We have a little compass in there. So again, it's just a fun, interesting book. I love the layout. Oh, here we have spells of protection. Oh, and we actually have a picture of Vlad Sapesh. I have yet to finish the video on him, the real life prince who Dracula is based on. So many neat things in here, and I really need to just sit and go through it. It's like I say, it's a fun book. We have, here we go. So we have our prisoner turns into a monster. So as much as I enjoy reading regular books, these are just super fun. And the students who came to my resource room definitely enjoyed them as well. And, it takes different things to get people excited about reading, and I'm good with that. I loved having a variety of books for them. And yes, I bought the books myself. They were not purchased by any budget or anyone else. I bought them, and so they were mine. I got to bring them home. Yay! Fantasy art now. The very best in contemporary fantasy art and illustration. This is edited by Martin McKenna, and it's just amazing. I really enjoy this book, and I picked it up because it has work by Anne Stokes, who is definitely one of my favorites. This is one of the little plaques I have by Anne Stokes. She's just such an amazing artist. I'm not sure I have another plaque with a character that she's designed as well. And I just love her work. It has fairies, it has dragons, as things that I totally enjoy. And she's just such a gifted artist. I mean, through this book, there are also others, and I just want to see if I can find a YouTube appropriate picture here to share, because this book is really Fascinating. Let's try this one. So if you're interested in art, you enjoy beautiful pictures, or you just want information about artists, this is called Ice Dragon. Okay, here we go. And it gives you information about the artist. This is Yvonne Gilbert. That was done as a book cover, and she did it with colored pencil. And it gives you a description of the painting, drawing, also where you can find it on YvonneGilbert.com. So for each of the photos in here, they give you the name of the artist, what it was created for. So there's some game illustrations, portfolio work. You can use this one as well. So this was portfolio work. There we go. And this was designed as a book cover. And those works are, the book cover is by Benjamin Kerr, and this is by Matt Gazer. So again, a lot of incredible pieces. There's another art book that I have. I know it's over that way at the moment, but I'm not going to dig through. It includes how the artist did it, what they used, whether it was Adobe, Photoshop, etc. So it's fun to look through books like that. And the artwork is just, I'm not someone who can draw. I might do okay with tracing. So it's a gift that I appreciate being able to see that other people do as well. Another book that I have in that cube is Crop Circles, Signs, Wonders, and Mysteries. So if you're the farmer who wants to try and harvest your grains, this may not seem spectacular, but from a symbol, seeing it, image, it's phenomenal. This book is by Steve and Karen Alexander. It, like so many others, and there you go. I've had this book since 2006 when I was leaving one of the schools, and I'd received a gift card from them. And so this was one of the books that I purchased. And again, the designs are incredible, whether they're made by humans or made by aliens. They're just truly something to behold. I know there are some people who have come forward and admitted to doing this. And I can certainly appreciate that farmers may not have been too happy about it. Because again, to try and harvest from there would be a nightmare, and especially with all the grains trampled down. So this was Avebury Manor, 2005. So I got as far as page 40. So that'll be an interesting read. And that, if you've seen my video from this morning and my oops, I did it again, thrift store, crop circles are mentioned in Unsolved Mysteries. So that will tie in, as I said, with some of the other books that I've found. I have Reincarnation, the Phoenix Fire Mystery. This is by Joseph Head and S.L. Cranston. That will be an interesting read. I've read quite a bit by think his name's Dr. Ian Stevenson. So I'm curious to see what these authors have to say about reincarnation. That ties in with Destiny of Souls. This is new case studies of life between lives. And this is by Michael Newton. He's a PhD. And this work is based on his work with hypnosis, which is where he got most of the information. And people talked about what they had seen between lives. I need to reread this. I've read it once before. And I also want to read The Life of Billy Fingers at the same time, because that's also an experience of a spirit after they've passed on, and the brother contacts his sister. So I'm curious how those two stories connect. And it also, I think there was something, oh, nope, it isn't that book. So I'll need to put this on the shelf with them. DM2, The Spirit Molecule, another book I just found. This has to do with research into near-death experiences, people talking about aliens and that type of thing. So I'm really fascinated to see what this research is about. And this author, Rick Straussman, he's an MD, has to say about things compared to what Michael Newton found from his clients, compared to what these authors have to say about reincarnation. I don't have any of Dr. Ian Stevenson's book on reincarnation, so I may have to check my library for that. And of course, this will tie in with The Uninvited by Nick Pope. This all has to do about alien abduction and what people have experienced as well. And it will also tie in with the UFO phenomena, and it goes through, when different things began and what people have experienced, the changes in abduction stories right from the beginning ones. So as I've said in a few videos recently, it really is fascinating. Sorry, got a cough. How all of these books tie in. And of course, I wasn't planning to do another thrift store shop for a while, but 50% off was just too good a deal to pass up. And obviously, with the fines, it was definitely meant to be, because it ties in beautifully with what I'm going to be reading shortly. Shortly, as in several months. I usually don't know one day to the next. It just depends what I pick up. The Darkest Powers trilogy. This is The Summoning, The Awakening, and The Reckoning. So 3 books in one. And these are by Kelly Armstrong. Won't be a weekend read, that's for sure. So I'm looking forward to this. I haven't read Kelly Armstrong. I think she's the one I tried one of her werewolf stories about and went, no, not for me. And this one has to do with ghosts, I believe. Exhilarating, suspenseful, and romantic. But I'm pretty sure this was about ghosts. She also, I know, has some vampire stories, I believe some trilogies. And I mean, It's a heck of a savings. I picked this up for $6 and it retailed for $29.95. So there's a huge savings. So although I know, yes, I've gone crazy at the bookstore the last few months with the books that I've purchased, when you compare what I paid versus what I would have paid, say, on Amazon even, or certainly Indigo, I saved hundreds of dollars and got amazing books in the process. The other two books that I had in the back, now, this one I probably won't read. It's more of a reference. The Element Encyclopedia of Ghosts and Hauntings by Teresa Cheung. Again, the individual who also wrote 21 Rituals to Change Your Life, activities that you can easily incorporate into every day. So this is the ultimate A to Z of spirits, mysteries, and the paranormal. She's also the author of the Element Encyclopedia of Vampires. So quite a variety of what she writes about. And as I say, this likely isn't going to be a front to back read. So I'll be featuring this a bit more, along with my other cube of reference books. Jack Skeleton back there. And I'll be doing books I'll never read. Actually, I think that'll be my live stream in a few weeks. And we'll go through that. It's not books that I don't enjoy the author. It's more their reference books. So they're things I'll pick up and maybe a few pages or stories, information here and there. So on to the TBR. We have, and again, I love this series, The Complete Idiot's Guide to Vampires. This is by Jay Stevenson, has PhD. Fascinating vampire lore from Eastern Europe, Greece, Italy, and the Middle East. I read this a while ago, might have been a year and a bit. I enjoyed it. I really like the Idiot's Guides. So here, and I'll look in the front where it tells us, because the different books mean different. Here we go. So they have grave mistake. Here you'll find faux pas, foolishness, and fallacies that have dogged the trails of those seeking to understand vampires. There's dead giveaway. These feature supplies extra background. This feature, pardon me, supplies extra background information on subjects described in the text, the native soil, so to speak, of the vampire issues you're reading about. There's cold fact. This box contains dark data of the strange but true variety to satisfy all the vampire trivia addicts. And stock talk. Here for the tongue-tied, you'll find definitions of vampire-related terms used in the book. It was an enjoyable read. There was a lot of interesting information. It talks about the vampires in books, in movies, in real life, in terms of the legends and how different things happened. There, of course, is mention of Vlad Tepes, because you can't really have a vampire book without him coming up, whether in his nonfiction real form, Vlad Tepes, Prince of Wallachia, or Count Dracula, created by Bram Stoker and thus well known. So either way, his image comes up. There's, of course, mention of Catherine Bathroy, and there's something that I do need to look up about her, because in one book it mentioned that they were contemporaries. I think that's the word. And in another, there's a huge gap between the years. So there's something I need to check there. Somebody's got some information incorrect. And of course, this can only go so far because it was published in 2009. So, of course, the vampire genre is always growing, there's always new work. So, this only goes as far as 2009. Now, the one thing that he does include here, as well as the books, the movies, and the fictional vampire saga, is he also has a few chapters about people who believe they're vampires, different vampire organizations, that type of thing. So, yeah, that was a bit difficult reading, but there's a whole lot of different stuff. Of course, the index at the back, a glossary. So if you're interested in vampires, this is definitely an excellent read and one that I will be reviewing again. So that's why it's in my TBR cube, even though I've read it before. I still need to finish Haunted Canada. This is by Joel A. Sutherland, and I mentioned this book in my Horror Mayhem wrap-up, which was uploaded on Monday. So I still need to get that one finished. And I'm actually going to put that here. Oops, because I do want to finish that fairly soon. Cold Moon Over Babylon was one of the books I had hoped to read for Horror Mayhem, but I ended up reading a number of other things. So that is going there, and I talked about Michael McDowell in my wrap-up video as well. Another fiction book that is waiting is Dean Koontz. This was from one of my thrift store shops a few months ago, and it was kind of funny because I didn't realize until I got home I had picked up 3 of the Dean Koontz fictions on the $1 shelf. So that was again, huge bargain. But the funny thing is, all the titles were W's: Winter Moon and Watchers. Now, I hadn't read the other 2 books before, but I have read Watchers before, so this will be a reread when I get to it. I'm just going to shove those books back so I have room to put the others. One of the box sets that I have to finish, thinking I finished my Wells box set. I finished my Jules Verne box set. I need to finish my Aleister Crowley box set. Oh, and I have my Dune box set. So I found this at Indigo. It was probably my last trip at Indigo, which was, I think sometime possibly last year, because I've been definitely thrift store shopping. So this collection comes with The Diary of a Drug Fiend, The Book of Lies, The Book of the Law, Moonchild, and Clouds Without Water, and White Stains. So this will be interesting. Now, I did read The Book of the Law and Liber 777. I highlighted a few things. It's got the hexagrams of the I Ching. There's some different information. Most of it is tables. And of course, There's some other information. I need to process it a bit more, but some of it does explain why people got freaked out by him. As I mentioned with Moonchild, this is a work of fiction by him. Considering the reputation that Alistair has, this book is actually quite tame so far, and I'm about halfway done. It's certainly nowhere near as racy or graphic as some of the Anne Rice novels, particularly The Witching Hour. We have the Book of Lies. Book of Lies, Supreme Secret, Ordo Templi Orientis. Now, I do know that he did start his own system, and that came up in the Brief Guide of Secret Religions. So I need to look into that a bit more and then read and see what that's about. The Clouds Without Water and White Stains, his poetic works, mix of biblical verses and intriguing stories. Crowley's poems reveal his unconventional views on religion and romance. Published in 1898. I'm not really big on poetry, but we'll give that a try at some point for sure. And The Diary of a Drug Fiend. Meets Louise, begin a whirlwind, embark. So I'm guessing, here we go. Inspired by Aleister Crowley's own experience as a drug addict, The Diary of a Drug Fiend is a gripping story about the frenzied pursuit of pleasure and ecstasy, which eventually leads to despair, ruin, and the desire for redemption. Interesting. And again, because there's so many different opinions about Alistair out there, the interesting thing, as I've started to look a bit into him, and I've certainly heard the name for a long time, but he wasn't actually born Aleister Crowley. He changed his name, and I'll talk more about him in a future episode of Hoax or Holy Grail. Not sure when I will cover Alistair. I just did Blavatsky a little while ago. And I think Edgar Casey may be the next one that I end up doing. I'll just have to wait and see. But lately, Casey has been coming up. So this is the all-new, first time in print, Edgar Casey Answers Life's 10 Most Important Questions. This is by John G. Fuller under the editorship of Charles Thomas Casey. Now that may be his son. I know I've seen Hugh's name a number of times. I know he had another son. So I'll have to find out as I read that. America's Greatest Psychic explains how to achieve peace, wholeness, and spiritual good health. This will be an interesting read, and it was published in 1989. Sherry. Okay, so Charles is the president of Edgar's organization. Okay, it doesn't say there. Oh, the foreword is by Charles. So I will have to read the relationship there. Now, the reason why I say Casey keeps coming up, on my last trip, just this, oops, I did it again. Edgar Casey, The Sleeping Prophet. This is by Jess Stern. I'd read this a number of years ago. I wanted to revisit it. Now, this is originally published in, I believe, it was 1967, and there have been 20 printings of it since. Obviously, people are still reading it and interested in it. What I found, and I'll be going through and double checking because, of course, it gives the predictions, the locations. Thankfully, some of the things that he said have not come to pass in terms of different countries or different sections of countries disappearing. But of course, it also mentions about the mantle and the Earth axis and the tilt, which people tend to forget. When Fukushima happened, and I believe, is that 2004? There actually was a change to the tilt of the Earth axis. And considering the massive size of the Earth and the sun's rays and everything, it doesn't have to be a massive change in the tilt to be a massive change in the Earth. So I'm really curious to look at some of the things that he predicted. And like I say, even though the timeline was different, the one thing he did stress is that the changes would be slow. So they weren't going to be immediate right away. The other thing that I found fascinating, because this week I also just uploaded my episode on the Franklin expedition and the terror. And here on page 54, I was reading yesterday. It's mentioning about the volcanoes in the Antarctic. And go figure, one's on Mount Terror and the other is on Mount Erebus. That's kind of a big coinkydink, don't you think? With all these books that I have, and I just picked this up last week. I finally finished my Franklin episode and get it uploaded. And 2 days later, there's the terror and the Erebus. I think that's kind of cool. I mean, it doesn't mean I'm going to be traveling to the Arctic to see either of those. It's just kind of neat how things pop up. So yes, Edgar may definitely be my next hoax or holy grail, because I had just come across, it must have been in a book. I don't think it was a website, but it could have been, that was saying about all the things that Edgar got wrong. So I want to track that down again and double check what some of that information was about, and then see compared to what comes up in the Sleeping Prophet, as well as the answers to the questions, and come up with a series about that. Someone else I'll be revisiting is Carlos Castaneda. This is The Eagle's Gift. He's another controversial author. There are people who say his stuff is just a whole bunch of nonsense, and some of it was for a project or his thesis at school. Others totally believe in it. He certainly put together a number of different works. I've never read his work, The Eagle's Gift, so this book will be a new read for me. I don't think I read his work, The Power of Silence, either. Author Teachings of Don Juan is the one I'd read. Don't know if I read A Separate Reality, Fire from Within, Power of Silence. Not sure. It's been a long time since I've read them, at least 10, maybe 20 years. And this is copyright 1981. So it's been a while. So I'm looking forward to see where he goes with that. Then I have Anne Rice, Blood and Gold. Again, at my thrift store, I just found 2 more Anne Rice, and things were half price, so I picked them up. And I picked up The Body Thief and Blackwood Farm. There we go. So now I have 3 more books to add to the Vampire Chronicles. I already had Interview with the Vampire and Prince Lestat. And I hadn't planned to buy the Chronicles. I was just going to finish reading them through the library. But I did like Blackwood Farm, so I'll enjoy reading that. I saw The Body Thief, and I liked the character of David and Aaron. Not so sure about the Talamasca themselves, but it'll be an interesting read and explains things. And Blood and Gold isn't one I'm familiar with, so we'll have. Oh, okay, this is Marius. Definitely looking forward to this because Marius is Lestat. And I only know that off the top of my head right now because we just rewatched Queen of the Damned a few days ago. So that'll be an interesting read, is finding out Marius's story. Then I've had these books waiting for a while. I just haven't gotten to them yet. Of Robin Hood by Henry Gilbert. Again, like Frankenstein, Dr. Jekyll, and Mr. Hyde. Really, I'm okay. I don't know what's with the speech. But like those other 2, I've seen the movies, but I haven't read the story yet. So it'll be interesting to see how that compares to the movies. I have Tales from King Arthur. This is edited by Andrew Lang. They're selected stories. It's a short collection. And these are both Woodworth classics. And I love King Arthur, so I really should move to the top of the pile. The next one, also Woodworth classic, Rip Van Winkle, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and Other Stories. This is Washington Irving. Now again, Sleepy Hollow, I've seen, I think, 2 different movies. We've just watched the one by Johnny Depp a little while ago, but I think there was an earlier version of the Sleepy Hollow movie. And it was funny because growing up as a kid, there was I grew up in the country. And so way out when you're driving around, there's this place and it overgrown with trees, everything. So I must have seen a Sleepy Hollow movie because I've never read the story before, but this area definitely reminded you of Sleepy Hollow. Now, Sleepy Hollow has been waiting for several months for me to finish it. I think okay, so that's where Sleepy Hollow starts. And, whoop, I'm like so close, but it just didn't have the oomph. So I need to get that. Spectre Bridegroom. So, okay. But I can't say Washington Irving. I know the name. I know he's famous. But the writing just didn't keep me going along. I knew the story of Rip Van Winkle as well. And yeah, but I do need to finish Sleepy Hollow. Another TBR again is The Chrysalids by John Wyndham. I love John Wyndham. I remember the Chrysalids. I read this as a teenager. I read Day of the Triffids. Absolutely loved both of those novels. Hadn't read any of his other work until 2 years ago, and thankfully my library had it. I also read The Midwich Cuckoos and Chalky. Very much enjoyed both of those reads. There's, yeah, John Wyndham is just, he's amazing. Hey, it's always fun when you get booted out of your own live stream. So I don't know what happened there. Something obviously going on with the Wi-Fi. But back to John Wyndham. I love just the way he lays out the story, the characters that he develops. He's just an amazing he's just an amazing author. And I did have videos summarizing the stories, but I'm going to be redoing them and uploading them sometime before the end of the year. I seem to have so many different things on the go. I'm trying to streamline. I'm trying to get back to the parables and self-care books. It's been fun delving back into the fiction books and that type of thing. But I need to also get back to some of the self-help things like Gary Zukav, Seed of the Soul, and there's a few others that I currently have. So those are a few. And the last book that I have in that cube are classic Victorian and Edwardian ghost stories. This is also a Wordsworth Classics. Look at that. I was on a roll with them. Says selected stories. Does it tell us who? Oh, this has only been waiting 20 years. I know, because what I used to do is put in the front when I bought a book, and this was August 18th, 04. Selected by Rex Collings. And these were published 1996. So this book has patiently waited 20 years. I am happy to say that I am getting quite a few of my own books, what I own, read, and that was my goal from January 2022. It's been great getting through all of them. Of course, my pile's getting bigger because I keep going to the thrift store. So I'm going to have to find something else to do for my big out and about trips. It's just the thrift store is kind of handy. I can get out, I can walk. It's fun. I enjoy it. The other two books that I have coming up, this one is Gods from Outer Space. It's by Eric von Daniken. I also have Chariots of the Gods, which I read eons ago, and I just read again. And I think it was last. I've never read this one, so I'm curious to see where this goes and where. Oh, there we are. I was wrong. He was in the other cube. So this is a peek ahead to cube 3. I'm just checking because I see my Wi-Fi things popped out again. This is Alan Alford, Gods of the New Millennium. This is work based on Zachariah Sitchin's The Earth Chronicles. Zachariah spent 30 years doing research, pulling the information together, coming up with his theory and publishing it in 6 different books. Alan Alford, and Zachariah also connects it in with the Bible. Alan Alford spent 10 years going through all of that and pulling his information and interpretation together. So it's a little bit different. Hello, not a carrot. So all of these will definitely be connecting as I pull all of this together. And the last book to mention in terms of what I'm going to be reading in the next bit is Dune. I've been meaning to get this started all week, and I still haven't got there because I keep getting sidetracked. I finished off My Idiot's Guide to Time Management, which was an interesting read and gave me a lot of chuckles because that's from 1995. So things have changed so much in terms of social media and how things are done, all of that. But it did have some good tips. I also, the other day, started the Idiot's Guide to Speed Reading, looking forward to seeing whether that actually improves. And I had no idea there were competitions for people and top speed reading. Dune is a great book. I'd read it years ago, long before the movies came out, and I really want to revisit it. There's another channel that I know they're starting, and they were going to do the sections by week. But right now, between yard work, the different books I have planned, and a couple of other things, I don't think I'm going to be able to keep up with that. But I really do want to revisit this again. And I also have, yep. Oh, this is the other box set I need to finish. So I have Dune. I had no idea there was more than one book. There's Messiah, there's Children of Dune, and I think there's actually 6 other books to this series. So when I decided to read Dune, and I ended up getting these at Chapters as well, can't remember what I actually got paid for this collection. I don't think it was one of the $25 bonus collections like Wells or Verne. But either way, I figured it'll be a nice revisit. I'm just not sure, since it's already Thursday, if I'm actually going to get to this or not this week, anyhow. And it's funny, it says now a major motion picture. I think there's actually, is it 2 or 3 different versions of Dune at this point? I know I just watched the original again about a month or so ago. And then there's a newer one, and I can't think who's in that. And then I think the one with Zendaya, and is it Jason Momoa in the newest take on Dune? So I definitely want to get started on that. I'm just not sure when, because Edgar was definitely saying, read me. And I don't know if I'll get to Von Daniken first, but now I really want to read Probe for Star Trek. So sometimes it's just super hard to decide what to read. And I'm one of I have no set TBR. I read by what am I interested in? What am I thinking? How am I feeling? So sometimes I'll read one of my, inspirational kind of books, whether that's something like The Celestine Prophecy or by Dan Millman or other authors of that genre, the parables I enjoy reading. I might want to read fiction because I just need a break, fiction or science fiction. I enjoy those. I've got the ghost stories, the horror stories. Then I get into things like astronomy, different things with plants and quantum physics and energy. The reference books are just that, refer to them. I have different channelers. Then I have things like Dave Wilcox, who I'm also kind of itching to get back to just to see what he says and how it ties into everything. And I'm not a Dave Wilcox or David Icke reptilians person, but they're an interesting read and something to think about for sure. But anyway, that is my TBR cube number 2, plus some extras, plus the books I have on the go. I might just have to start probe. Oh, let's see. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see when I start probe, but definitely wanting to get into that. I end up reading a magazine this month. It's only the 6th. So I'm looking forward to going through that trivia, looking forward to finding out what her thoughts are about this probe and visiting the Romulans again. It's been a while. I may also end up, I think I already said, watching the movies again. I have all the astronomy books. So I definitely have more than enough to keep me out of mischief for a little while. And of course, somewhere in there, I'm going to have to balance in, housework, that everyday kind of stuff. But anyhow, I think I am going to call it a wrap for today, mainly because I've been babbling for an hour. If you're on the rewatch, let me know if you've read any of the books I've mentioned and what did you think about them. I'm always looking for the next good read. So if you have some recommendations, either by the authors I've mentioned or something you're currently enjoying reading, let me know in the comments down below. If you're here on the rewatch, thank you so much. I always appreciate your time. Not a carrot, not sure if you're still here, but thank you so much for popping in. I appreciate it. And until next time, take good care